Yeah.
Drama all around me, they be DC.
West side.
This time they can't switch sides. A bird's eye when I swear by. Top down, they was not around who I got now. We made champions, yeah. In the trenches, we made champions, yeah. At the bottom, we made champions, yeah. At the bottom,
What's up, folks? We're here with another episode of Live 3 Legendary Podcast. I got my co-host with me, Fresh the Legend, and we got another prominent brother from Philadelphia here today, man. He's a gun violence reduction advocate. He's an attorney. Of all things, he's a father, and this brother is an academic juggernaut with a lot of accolades to his name.
Sir.
So listen, I mean, one of the things I want to point out first is you from West Philly.
Yes, sir.
So, you know what I mean? One of West Philly on, we proud to have you represent this, you know what I mean, that part of the city. Tell me about that, though. What was it like walking the West Philly streets? How'd you go from that to then being who you are today?
Yeah, so I tell people I'm from 58 from Baltimore, and we was just geeking.
Yeah.
Because the first thing people say, oh, you from Southwest?
Yeah, that's the
And
first
it's like,
thing I
don't
said.
disrespect me like that. No disrespect to Southwest, though, because I did spend like 5 of my formative years living up near Pascal Projects on 72nd and Saybrook when my dad and my stepmother were together. Right. But I grew up, my mom and pop, they both from 58th Street. My mom used to live on 58th Street between Christian Street and well, she lived right on the corner of 58th and Montrose. My pop, he from 58th and Christian on the corner of 58th near 59th and Christian. And I mean, West was a transitioning neighborhood. Like where I'm from, that was like a more like working class, upper middle class neighborhood. A lot of people who had federal jobs, postal workers, police officers. And the thing is like, I start my story with my great grandfather his name was President Harden. This some crazy shit.
His first name was President.
His first name was President. It didn't say that on his birth certificate because his parents were slaves. So one of the things that happened with slavery after the slaves were freed, the first thing they did was they started naming their children shit like Mr., Uncle, Auntie, you know what I mean? Like giving them names that were prominent because they had been used to being disrespected, like, you know, giving them bad names. So his parents named him President, but they spelled it on his birth certificate as Preston.
Right.
Because they was like, ain't no Negro gonna be named President.
Right.
But what ends up happening is he's a World War I veteran. My grandfather, who I always tell people, black people who left the South, they were fleeing racial terror.
Right.
They weren't coming up north for shits and giggles. They were coming up north because they were fleeing lack of economic opportunity, Jim Crow, racial injustice, lynchings, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm starting this long story about West Philly, but you can't tell that story without talking about my grandparents.
Right.
My grandfather comes up, he works at the Barnes Foundation over on, before it got moved downtown, it was an art museum. And he starts a family, he's a World War II vet. My father was a Navy veteran. My uncle was a Navy veteran. So like technically, like we got 3 generations of veterans, you know, with that type of profile for a family in America, you would think that we wouldn't be living in abject poverty.
Right.
But what ends up happening is, you know, crack hit. Mm-hmm. My mom got a habit, my pop got a habit. My pop came back with habits from the Navy. Mm-hmm. And then I lived in a neighborhood, 58th and Christian, my block, Truman. Mm-hmm. Like all of the legends of West Philly, if you know the dudes that grew up on my block, the dudes that was putting work in, those is my like, I'm 40 now, but them dudes is like 48, 49. Mm-hmm. So I'm a young boy running around. They just my friends' older brothers or my friends' older cousins. Mm-hmm. And they the gats of the neighborhood. So I kind of always was like on the porch until maybe, I got off the porch relatively young, but with my neighborhood, coming off the porch at 14 was late.
Right.
Coming off the porch at 15 was late.
Right.
And what happened was my pop was real intentional. He made sure like all my friends went to Anderson, which is at 59th or 60th and Cobbs Creek or whatever, 61st and Cobbs Creek. I went to Bryant, which is on 60th and Cedar. It was harder to get in there. We had to lie about my address for me to go there because all the kids that went there, they lived on 61st and Larchwood up in them big houses that was on Cobbs Creek. All their parents had money. Relative, it wasn't really that much money, but when you living in a neighborhood where it's like, this versus that meant something. Then instead of everybody went to Turner, everybody went to Sayre, I went to Bieber on the north side, went to a science program there. That was because of my academics. I got accepted to Masterman, but my pop was like, I'm not putting my son on the train at 5th grade to go downtown with them. My pop was real nervous about that. And then after Bieber, I went to Central. I went to Central for 3 years, and then between my academics and getting wrapped up and coming off the porch, you know what I mean? And you start paying, I always tell people, the hardest part about growing up in West was that there wasn't really any opportunities for ambitious young men that knew that they were poor. I listened to these stories about Mike Rubin. I listened to these stories about Edelman, who took over the share of the Sixers ownership from Mike Rubin. And they talk about when they went to their bar mitzvahs when they was 16, or when they was getting their money from their families when they was turning 15 and 16, they going to buy, you know, I think Edelman said that he bought his first property with his bar mitzvah money, and Rubin saying he went out and bought dead stock Xavier McDaniel sneakers, $300,000, $400,000 when he was 16 years old. The only opportunity I had to put my intellect to work, to put my hustle to work when I was 16 was to start selling drugs. Either I went and worked at McDonald's and watched the people around me do better than me. And yeah, I realized my mom had a drug problem. So it's like we were in abject poverty. I'm the oldest of 5. Both my grandparents died from cancer. Both my parents died from cancer before they turned 50. I'm literally living in this environment where it's like, I know I'm poor. And it's like, I know I'm smart. But the best I could do is go be the best employee at McDonald's.
Right.
And you can't tell me that that's fair when you talk about the contrast of like, everybody desires autonomy. Autonomy is the idea that I can control my own destiny. And we have this huge, like my defining moment in West Philly was, number one, I did karate. So I did all the sports, but karate was my shit because I got to hit people and not get in trouble. But for me, I think when I look at it as an adult, like I probably would define it differently when I was a young boy, but as an adult, the most important thing that I recognized growing up in the hood was that I was ambitious. I wanted to do what I thought my intellect would take me to do. And I was stifled by that. And the only opportunity, I mean, the math wasn't hard. Like you sit and you start selling coke, or you start selling weed, or you start selling drugs, and you start looking at the math versus the risk, and you're like, oh, this ain't even a question,
right?
You know, given everything. The thing is that after a while, you kind of become a part of that lifestyle. It's like I used to tell people I watch Paid in Full every day for 4 years, because if you're an achiever, every day for 4 years, I can tell you the whole movie. I can literally start the movie from the beginning with the first words to the end. I could probably just spit the whole movie. But the reason I say that is because the same way when I practice law and when I'm giving advice to my mentees practicing law, I say to them like, yo, who do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
Who's the best at what you do? And it's like important that like I tell folks that like, even when I was a hustler, I would be like, who's the best hustler? And I was like, well, I want to be better than that.
Not to cut your wisdom, because
no, you good. Keep going. Cut me off.
All right, because you went to law, and I want to, before we even get to law, because you said a couple things. You went to a neighborhood. You said a neighborhood school in Southwest. I'm not really sure the name of it.
I ain't go to no neighborhood school. I never went to a neighborhood school. That's what I'm saying.
No,
the thing is, my pop would send me away from the neighborhood schools to make sure that I didn't go to school with my friends. So for middle school, I went to Bieber, which is on the north side. That's 58th and Malvern.
Is that a neighborhood school?
No. I mean, it's a neighborhood school for people that's from that neighborhood. But for me, I mean, I'm getting on the G every morning, an hour before school. I catch the G at 58th and 56th and Christian. That's gonna take me to 58th and Malvern. Essentially, put it like this: I'm going from 58th and Baltimore to Overbrook.
So my question for you is, I think it's amazing how you went to Beaver, but you could have went to Masterman, and then you went to Central, like, how did you get intelligent? Because if you're in the hood and you was exposed to these things, where did you get the intellect from?
No, I mean, I think that's like a misnomer. I mean, what
that word mean? I'm sorry.
It's so cool. No, a misnomer is the idea that like people think like, oh, where did you learn the basics of education? And it's just like, no, I mean, most of us grew up in at least where I was at. I grew up in a 3-parent household. I give all my educational credits to my grandmother, Verpeline. Like back then, if you was 65, you was retired, and I got picked up every day from school by 3 o'clock by my grandmother, and I sat at that kitchen table and did my homework until it was done. And I ate whatever she cooked until it was done. And I was joking with my daughter the other day. I didn't get a question wrong on a test until 8th grade because it was just like that's natural somewhat, but most of it was just that like I've always been aggressive, ambitious. That's who I am.
It was innate.
So that's what I'm trying to figure out. How did you become?
So I think that there's a level of anti-intellectualism that we have adopted for black men that we don't recognize isn't true. Like all of us were nerds at one point. All of us were into Dragon Ball Z. All of us were into cars. All of us wanted to be into things that were in like video games. Like, but we were discouraged from those things from two different perspectives. Even if it's in the sneakers, like somebody will call the dude that created StockX a genius, but call you an idiot for standing in line trying to buy sneakers. But you know more about sneakers than the white boy who then started StockX. But he has his parents look at him and say, your interest in your interests are valid. The things that you want to develop in life, they're important, and they get support in a different way. I don't think that my intellect was at its peak when I was in my first year of college. Why? Because I was more worried about making money. Education is an exercise. It's just like working out. So it's just like, it's repetition. It's all the things that happen. My aunt, my grandmother, my aunt, she lived in California, but they made sure that education was very important. All my family thought education was really important, but just as quickly as I was smart, I was dumb the moment I stopped flexing that muscle, stopped practicing writing. It takes practice. Like they say, writing, math, all those things take practice. So I wouldn't say that where did I got smart? I got smart because that's what I did. I did that every day. But if you're somebody who's getting discouraged from doing those things, or if you're someone who is more worried about whether or not you're going to eat every day, or if you're someone who's worried about whether or not you gotta, like, my pop was a mechanic growing up and we found a love for working on cars together. But it was just like, there are certain things that happen in the black community where our intellect is discouraged. You know what I mean? Like being in that, like the things that typical black boys are into in, say, 6th grade, those are all nerdy things. I mean, when I was in 6th grade, we was in the Dragon Ball Z, video games, playing games like Metal Gear Solid, like real Final Fantasy VII. Right. These things are hard. These are the things that Elon Musk was playing when he was in college. You get what I'm saying? But then we all of a sudden had this shift where we were told that those things were childish and we had to put them away. And then instead we had to start using other instincts. Who's the best at spotting one time from 4 blocks away? That's who. And if you're flexing that muscle, figuring out who the Jammy Boys is, what's that car, is that a cop? If that's the muscle you flexing all day, your muscles for design, creativity, all those things start to wither away.
You think that was I love that. You think that was intentional? Not by way of you, but by way of what's put into our neighborhoods. Like, why do you think that happened? When we make those shifts from the nerdy, from the Dragon Ball Z, to now who can spot the cops, who can do X, Y, who getting the most pussy. Like, you think that's intentional?
Do I think it's intentional? No, but do I think it's a product of that lack of, we went through this during the gun violence epidemic during COVID, where I had to explain to people that like what people value changed dramatically, and people couldn't understand, like, why these young boys shooting each other? We locking up all the drug dealers. Ain't nobody standing on corners selling drugs. But these young boys still shooting each other. What in the world? And I'm like, the entire industry has changed. The entire dichotomy of what it means to be an ambitious, successful young boy has changed. It used to be who freshest, who got the nicest wheel. Now they riding around in Johnnies. It used to be, and the dude who is important is the dude riding around and who get the most Johnnies, who got the most bodies. And what I explained to people, I said, like, listen, clout changed. It used to be that, who was the first I remember who the first boy in my hood was that had a rollie. I remember who the first boy in my neighborhood who had the first Bonneville. The first boy that came through in a Caprice on 20s. You're like, oh my God. And every girl in the neighborhood remembered too. Now, every girl remember what boy had the most bodies. And it's a different level it's a different economy. And all I'm saying is that it's not about why those things happen, because it's an economy, man. Like everything is everyone is going to sit around and they're going to let me say it this way. It's human nature to be competitive. It's human nature to want to achieve. It's human nature to want to show off and be proud of yourself, to provide for your family. It's human nature for some people to peacock and show everybody how, and what I think happened is that when you take away the legitimate means of developing those things, people aren't going to now all of a sudden just decide that, I'm not going to be competitive. I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to achieve. I'm not going to do good. Instead, they're going to make a way.
Right.
They're going to make a way.
So is gun violence awareness, is that important to you because of the environment you grew up in, or because you were a product of it, or both?
Both. I mean, listen, when I say I didn't get a test, anything wrong on a test until I was like in 8th grade, it's when I was in 8th grade, 2 of my homies got killed, execution style down the bottom, David and Kian. David Richardson, and I can never remember Kian's last name. I don't know why I can't remember his last name nowadays. But David Richardson got shot 21 times, Kian got shot 23 times.
On that block where they, damn.
It's not Lex Street.
Oh, all right.
It's not Lex Street, but it was like right before Lex Street. And to this day, like I'm now that I'm older, I probably could get the mathematics on it, like who had what that was about, because we was clueless. I mean, I had never smoked weed before that. I had never drank a 40 before that. Right. But all of a sudden, you're forcing me. They were 16. I was in 7th or 8th grade, so I was like 12, 13, and now I'm forced up. Like I'm mourning my friends, because David had a little brother named Tyrell. And Tyrell was the same age as me. I used to go over his crib, play video games. He had all the games. His mom, single mom, taking care of 2 boys. David was thorough, and it's kind of funny how things come full circle. David went to Glen Mills real young. And when he goes up Glen Mills, I'm guessing, I don't know, because I was young, so I didn't understand what it was. David came home and taught us all how to do steps. Damn. Because when he was up Glen Mills, whoever it was that was working as like like the social workers, they was alphas. Yeah. So David used to be doing all this, like he'd be and we used to be playing around in the crib with him. He taught us all how to step, and we'd be doing the steps with him. We used to do them at the block parties and stuff like that. Yeah. But David started hustling, and we had like a block in our neighborhood where our old heads on that block was some of the top hustlers in the city to this day. I mean, they got drama that got them taken off the streets, but nevertheless, at the time they was smoking it. And next thing you know, we get a call. Dave and them was at a house down the bottom, and they got killed, execution style, bound up, tied up. I was too young to really get the inside scoop. But the reality is that it forced me to mourn with a group of people that I never knew what mourning meant in the hood, but I knew I was messed up, and I'm going outside at 5 p.m. and my homies that's 21 to my homies that's 12 is all sitting on a corner mourning together, and we smoking and we drinking, and I had never done any of that stuff before. And next thing you know, I'm off the porch, just like that. Off the porch, just like that.
So where'd that take you?
I mean, for the most part, my family did like a really crazy intervention. Like my aunt flew in from California. They wanted to make sure I graduated from high school. Where it landed me at Central. Right. So, yeah, because what happened is my family recognized that I was going through something. They recognized that I had 2 friends die. I had a teacher who, to this day, she claimed that she saved my life. And in reality, I honestly think that like she was just a dickhead. Like, I mean, and maybe that was warranted. But the reality is like I still don't like her to this day. She was just unpleasant. She had no compassion. She was dismissive. She was one of those women who, in my opinion, she was bougie, and she thought that certain type of kids deserved one type of education and certain types of kids deserved a different type of education. And I say that because one of these girls had gotten like her parents had pulled her out of Catholic school and sent her to school with us. And she came in and she didn't test into any of the classes that we tested into. Because I would test into like the high ranking classes, and I would do it. Now You said, where did it land me? I was smoking weed now. So now I'm smoking weed before school. I'm smoking weed after school. I'm coming to school high. And I'm in 8th grade. I'm not turning in papers. My grandma passed away my 7th grade year. So my dad not really pressing me. He not on top of me, making sure that I'm good. Because now I'm a co-parent with him. My mom, she had a real bad, my dad got himself together. My mom had a real bad issue. She was always.
You had 2 losses then.
What you mean?
Your grandma?
Yeah.
And then your homie.
Yep. My grandma died from throat cancer. It was crazy. Esophageal cancer is crazy. But long story short, that year I wasn't wilding out. I was just being 13. I mean, what 13-year-old boy don't exhibit a lack of inertia as they start realizing that the girls got breasts.
Right. right.
Wait a minute. One of the girls in my high school class, my friend to this day, she was pregnant in 8th grade. Yeah. I'm like,
we could do that?
Oh, we doing that?
You going from Southwest to North Philly on that train.
We're not in North yet though. I'm still in West. This is. But the thing is that Bieber is in the bougie part of West Philly, Overbrook Farms, Hilltop. I'm getting introduced to all the Hilltop players, all the Lansdowne Avenue players. It was a completely different environment, man. The girls was dressed to the nines. I was dressed to the nines. I mean, that European streetwear was just coming out. Like y'all was geeking off my clothes. I still dress the same way I dressed when I was in 7th grade. But by then I'm selling weed to fix my weed habit. You know what I mean? I was selling weed to smoke weed.
Right.
So, I mean, what ends up happening is it pushes me to Central because my family comes in and they're like, yo, you're too smart for this. Like, and people recognize what was going on. Yeah. And it was a impetus that made everybody say like something's wrong with Kevin. And they all came in, I got admitted to Central, but going back to that teacher, that was the point I was making. She would try to get that girl into all the classes that she didn't test into, but try to get me kicked out of all the classes that I tested into because of behavior. And it was like, I was telling my daughter's teacher, I was a desk outside the class nigga. He can't sit in here. And that's because I finished my test 15 minutes high.
Right, and then you be.
And it's active.
So you went Central 9th to 12th?
No, 9th to 12. They kicked me out the week before the first week of 12th grade.
You lying.
They sent me a letter saying I didn't have academics, and I'm like, I appealed it because technically you can't fail 3 classes at Central. I didn't fail 3, I failed 2. But I had all this academic stuff, man. I was
Did you graduate from Central though?
No, I graduated from Bartram.
Yeah. Your family structure was super instrumental in a lot of the things that you did in your lifestyle.
I mean,
in the beginning, at least.
I would say instrumental. I would more say impactful. Impactful, because I mean, some of it was an impediment, but some of it was motivation. Like, I mean, I think I am where I am today because I'm the oldest of 5 kids. When my parents got sick, the first thing I said was, damn, it ain't nobody else but me. I gotta, either we gonna go this route or we gonna go that route. So it was very much me saying like, I gotta smoke this or finish this or complete this or accomplish this, because if I don't do it, then it ain't gonna get done.
So at Central or Bartram, I'm gonna say, did you already know in your head at Bartram what you wanted to go to college for?
I didn't think I was going to college.
So talk to me about that part.
Yeah, so I thought I was defeated. So I was off the porch in 7th, 8th grade, went to Central, and when I went to Central, got a job at McDonald's, became a manager, real square lifestyle. I'm talking about like went from being like 7th, 8th grade, went from being somebody that like between my older brothers, I have a stepbrother. So my older stepbrother, but I call him my older brothers. My dad had not a wife, but you know how it is in the hood. Like he lived with his girl. We all live in the same house. That's my stepbrother. Like we like that to this day.
Yeah.
They would give me hand-me-downs, but they in the streets heavy. So I'm coming to school looking like Pac when he was at the movie premiere. I'm Versace'd out every other day. I'm like fresh Nikes. We all wear the same size. Fresh, like they get a scuff on their Tim. I don't want them Tims no more.
To you, they brand new.
Yeah, I'm brand new. I'm in all that's 7th, 8th grade. I get to 9th grade, and now my family then kind of like said, yo, you got this opportunity. You going to Central. I go stone cold weirdo for 3 years. But of course, I already been off the porch, so I'm still smoking weed, still playing around with weed a little bit, but not really in it as much. Started doing karate, which was something that was really, really important to me, traveling all over the country, because I literally fought so well that they put me on the Philadelphia national karate team. First kid to ever be on the Philadelphia national karate team. And
You got a black belt
oh yeah, I'm a 4th degree black belt.
Solid.
right now.
Yeah.
I don't want no smoke.
Oh, I never.
And yeah, 4th degree. And essentially what happens, like, listen, look me up on YouTube, like legit,
do
like
that.
YouTube, Kevin Harden Jr. karate, and all these videos gonna
I
show
throw
up
a
me
punch
kick.
at you. You doing some shit?
No,
to me.
no, I'm gonna shoot you. So I know.
You got a pocket. Put your hands in your pocket, yo. Put your hands inside your hoodie pocket, bro. I don't want to. Yeah.
I ain't fighting. I'm 39 years
He
old.
said I'm still.
I go to work. I got a black eye. They're like, "What happened to you?" I gotta come up with some type of excuse as to why I was fighting in the streets. No, I'll still knock you cold stone out.
Damn.
No, I'm not gonna shoot nobody.
That's crazy.
But no, what happened is like I was just in between two worlds, and then but the thing that happened is once I got kicked out of Central, you'd have thought that I got like a felony conviction. I thought my life was over. I'm going to Bartram now. And it was the summer before I started at Bartram. I don't know where my head was at. I was just being dramatic, drastic, devastated. I started hustling again. I was selling weed for like that whole summer, you know, hanging with the boys that like, like my dad always had this rule that I couldn't go to school with my friends. And it wasn't until my 12th grade year that I was going to school with my friends from the neighborhood. And what it was is when you go to Central, you getting on. And I didn't realize this was different until I was a lawyer. When I was a lawyer, one of the other lawyers I was working with was just like, damn, you must have had it really rough growing up. And I'm like, what you mean? He said, going from 58th in Baltimore to Broad and Allen, that's crazy. And I'm like, that's normal. And he was like, no, it's not. And then I started recognizing that like the kids that I compete with, these grown up lawyers that I compete with, they never been to a school that took them more than 15 minutes to get to.
Right.
They grew up in a suburb where literally their effort to go to school was wake up, walk to the end of the driveway, and a bus would pull up, and they get in the bus, or walk to the driveway, and their mom would put them in the car and drive them the car line. Versus me getting up at the crack of dawn.
Trolley L in the sub.
Trolley L in the sub, or 46 L in the sub. Because like at 58th in Baltimore, you got something going every which direction. So you literally standing out there. You get out there like what? We would get this because Central nerds. We get to school super early, so that we could play games, play spades, play dominoes before school. That started at 7. I mean, people get into school at 7 to do that. Plus, people got workouts before school. So football got workouts before school, wrestling got workouts before school, track got workouts before school. So people is leaving their cribs at 6 in the morning to get to school at 7 a.m. And it's like, and literally at 6 in the morning, you go in the donut shop. Hey, what's going on? You seeing everybody in the donut shop? You cop your hot sausage. You cop your tea, your coffee, and you come out on the corner of 58th in Baltimore, and you look at each bus stop and see which one got girls on it. You go G, 46, 34. You go look and you say, oh, I see little buddy over there, and you go over there and you're like, oh, we going to school this way today.
Okay.
And that's how it went. And then you catch the trolley to 15th Street, or you catch because you got a school token, they give you a pass. You catch the trolley to 15th Street, or you catch the G or the 34, the G or the 46 up to 60th, up to Market Street to Broad to school, and then the same thing after school. After school, you got after school activities.
That's fresh.
I wasn't getting home every day till 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Yeah, that's a hike.
Every day you get home, so you ain't had no time to do nothing. You ain't had no time to get in trouble, to grind, to get in the neighborhood. I would get home at 7:30 at night, 8 o'clock at night, and I get on the phone with my friends. They'd be like, my friends from the neighborhood, they'd be like, yo, such and such got shot after school. And I'm like, I got off the bus at that bus stop, and there wasn't no signs that there was a shooting. Right. But that's how locked in you was going to school at Broad and Almond.
The blessing of that is like all the move around you did. That's why you're so popular. You're a very popular person. Like a lot of people know you. You know a lot of people, but it's all the move around you did.
I've been here. I tell people everything. I got from kindergarten through my kindergarten to doctorate. I went to public school in Pennsylvania.
You heard that? That man said kindergarten to doctorate.
I went to public school in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's dead. Yeah.
Head Start, Bryant, Bieber, Central, Bartram, Kutztown, Temple, all public school.
Damn. So Kutztown. All right. So now we go from Central to Kutztown. Did you like going to Kutztown?
It was an adjustment. So
white school.
Yeah, I mean, but more diverse than most of the other state schools. Yeah, I mean, Millersville was diverse. I mean, I went to school at a unique time. So 03 to 07, it was a lot of people from the city in college. Yep. And Temple, Drexel, LaSalle, all of them, they're dealing with the fact that they're dealing with it now. That they went with this strategy of attracting out-of-state students and suburban kids. Because if you look around, it's more inner-city educated, like Philadelphia School District kids who have degrees from Millersville, IUP, Kutztown, Westchester than it is. Like, I'm sure Temple's a huge school, but like none of us got into Temple. Like my man's Jordan Harris, State Representative Jordan Harris. He's the chair of the Appropriations Committee for the Pennsylvania State Legislature, the dude that's responsible for giving out the money to everybody. And he went to Millersville. As talented as he was, Millersville is a college access institution, which means that it's a school for children, for students who first generation, maybe not really ready for college. What? I was at Kutztown with like 8 Central kids. We are the kids that are definitely going to college. But for some reason, somehow, we weren't groomed to go to Penn State, to go to, Harvard, Spelman. And there are people that went to those schools, but their parents probably had a little bit more knowledge. And I just felt like, I went to Kutztown because it's the only school I really applied to. It's the only school I had a completed application at. I met this guy named Jeff Jones. Jeff Jones, literally, Bartram, it wasn't, those kids, including myself, those kids, we didn't think we was going to college. We thought getting into college was like hitting the lottery. It's like, I ended up getting to college with a full scholarship. I really hit the lottery. I'm doing cartwheels through the fucking hallway.
Full scholarship or karate?
No, full scholarship on academics. But what ends up happening is, Jeff Jones said, what's your SAT score? I told him my SAT score. He said,
What was it?
It was a 1330. He said, what's your SAT score? I said 1330. He said, congratulations, son. If you're telling me the truth, you got a full scholarship. That was it. Just like that.
I want to pause him. I want to just shout him out for having a full scholarship for academics, not for karate, football, basketball, for being intelligent. Come from your comfort. I just want to say,
oh no,
respect you for that, brother.
No, I appreciate
heavy,
that.
Man.
But no, but at the end of the day, I've always been a good test taker. There's plenty of people that could have did exactly that. It's just that they didn't know. Or they didn't get the prep courses. I went to Central, so Central gave us specific SAT prep. So I took the SATs when I went to Central.
What made you a good test taker? Like what tactics did you have, or you just?
Yeah, that's a whole strategy in itself. I hate.
So I don't know if it's a strategy. I look at academics the way most people look at sports. So I think the best way to describe it is like every time I've taken a test, except for the SAT, I think I took it high. Like, I was in that space in my life where I was like, I smoked weed before I'm on the way to the SAT.
Study how to take tests,
but,
get high scores.
But as an adult, now that I'm recognizing I'm a good test taker, one of the reasons that I recognize I'm a good test taker is that I'm real big with repetition. I pick up on things really quickly. And like, I'll never forget when I took the bar exam, one of my mentors was just like, why'd you finish the test so quickly? And it's just like, I'm really good at logical reasoning. And that's, I'm easily trained.
It's
like,
a gift.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a gift. I think anybody can do. I just think that, you need the timing and you need the time and the resources. I'm one of those people that if you put a test in front of me and don't tell me how to take it, I'm not going to do well at it. But if you give me 4 practice exams beforehand, then I'm gonna take the practice exams. I'm like, oh, this is how you do it? Oh, all right, you show me how to do it? I'm like, all right, yeah, I got this. That's
all the things you said just from here sounds like that's what you've been preparing for.
Yeah.
From what your grandma at the table.
Yeah.
From karate and all those things are things you have to like prep, study for, prepare for. Karate. You don't become a 4th degree black belt by just doing this shit. That's repetition. So it seems like you've been groomed your entire life to be doing these type of things.
Yeah, and I was just teaching my daughter I was helping her with some homework the other day, and my daughter's very like me. And it's like, me and her have the same personality, and I don't know, I'm pretty sure she has a share of me and her mother, but we both have the same learning style. So when I see her encounter things that are difficult, it's not that she doesn't have the intellect to complete them, it's that she doesn't have not a rubric, but like a method. Like everybody has this is how you should approach this problem. You know what I mean? Like, and like, this is completely off the cuff, but like recently I started taking piano lessons, inspired by my daughter. My daughter, she had a really good piano, dance, and drum recital all in one weekend. And I just loved her energy. It was inspiring. So I started taking piano lessons in January. And since I'm so high level now, I've been practicing law for 15 years. I got a doctorate. I'm so important, I guess. I forgot how to learn. And so I'm sitting there practicing this piano and I'm smoking it. I'm killing Mary Had a Little Lamb. Like I'm like,
Right.
Can't tell me I ain't Beethoven.
Right.
And I'm having trouble. We moved to something good King Wenceslas. Like we go to another song and now I got to play a different note with my right hand and my left hand. And my instructor said, look, I want you to practice this bar with your left hand over and over again until you perfect it. So break it down. Just this bar, just your left hand, over and over again. So I'm 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I did that for 30 minutes. And she's like, all right, now the thing that you're gonna play with your right hand at the same time, practice that for 30 minutes.
Right.
Just your right hand. Don't try to master it all at one time. So now I'm 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. She's like, all right, you doing both of those without even looking now, right? Play them together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because I know it. And it's like, that's the level, like, when you get to being an adult at 40, if something don't come to you immediately, you be like, this ain't for me. This ain't for me.
Right.
This ain't for me. I ain't, no. What? You want me to drive a stick? No. You want me to drive a hell? But then her forcing me to learn it at a kindergarten level reminded me of what learning looks like. So what I end up doing is I'm sitting with my daughter and it was really good for me to be like, all right, we're gonna break this down. Let's do this half first and we're gonna practice it and we're gonna take 30 minutes. And kids focus is different nowadays because they sit on TikTok or they sit on YouTube and them videos turn every 30 minutes. And it's like having to help my daughter the same way I have to help myself because I recognize it. We live in this distraction economy where you checking your phone every 15 minutes. Somebody reply, somebody text me, somebody call, somebody post, somebody comment, somebody update. And it's like teaching people how to think in 30-minute, without checking your phone for 30 minutes, without an hour. So that's what I would say is good for me with test taking is that, back then somebody taught me the same thing that my instructor just reminded me of again, which is sometimes you gotta take your left hand and just isolate that and practice that alone for, everybody wanna run out, and I use sports all the time. Everybody wanna run out and be like, filet. But you gotta dribble with your right hand for 2 days, and then dribble with your right hand for your left hand for 2 days, and then you gotta do it behind your back for 4 days, and maybe for years, maybe for months before you can get to put before it starts looking the way it's supposed to look. And I'm like with karate, I'm blessed. I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm blessed. I've been doing it for 30 years.
You ever been discriminated against?
Have I ever been discriminated
From where
against?
you come from.
Absolutely.
And going where you've gone.
Absolutely. But discrimination takes a lot of different forms. For the most part, I think everybody gets presumed to be something. I think race discrimination is just something that it just comes with being who I am. I think the discrimination that honestly has been the most harmful for me has been like discrimination in the sense of like, not only am I just black, but I'm a poor black kid who doesn't have the traditional intellect that you would associate with, someone who performs at a high level. So not only am I black, but I'm a black kid from the hood who went to public schools and probably is like completely affirmative action, DEI hire. And then I revel in it. Like it's the best part of my life because if you did a postmortem and looked at my history of my life, my past is riddled with the bones of people who thought that I was sweet for it from an educational perspective. I will read faster than you. I will write faster than you. I will speak better than you. I will smoke you and put you in a blender in every potential possible aspect of everything that we're competing at. But you think that because I went to John Bartram High School that I don't read good. And they quickly find out that that is not the case. So have I been discriminated against? To my benefit.
So I haven't seen Kevin in about 10 years. I might have seen him in passing maybe once, but about 10 years ago we was on a panel discussion. This is when I was in my heavy community activist bag. I had my locks, Black Power guy. I was at CCP at the time. I was the leader of the Black Student Union as well. And he came up on the panel discussion. This is when somebody got killed. This is when
Probably like around Trayvon Martin time.
Yes, around that time, it was right. So we had speakers coming up to talk about, what was going on in the city. So today I seen the first time he evolved his title. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but at that time he was assistant DA?
Yeah, assistant district attorney.
Assistant district attorney at that time. And at that time I had a real problem with that. Cause I'm like, hey, you from the community, you're a black man. I'm like, are you like prosecuting the people that are doing the crime, or are you trying to help us? And at that time, I was more so in some like, you should be a defendant, and my ignorance and passion. But then we had a good debate, and I seen that it was a need for him. And then, this is what you don't know, 10 years later, drill music, people dying heavy. And this would be like, sometimes they'd be like, yo, they be needing some hard sentences. We need to get them. Then Larry Krasner came, and he got his models, and he killing them. So I want to talk to you about how was it being a young black DA at that time period, and looking at it from that time period to where it's at now?
I mean, I would say that first and foremost, like the idea for me being a DA came from one of my old heads that was in the streets, heavy in the streets, my man Fresh. He's like, man, if you want to be a good criminal defense lawyer, youngin, you gotta go be like McMonagle and them. You gotta go be a DA first. Like it was all about a bag from his perspective. I went to law school wanting to be a criminal defense attorney. That's what I wanted to do. Then I went into law school. It was 2007. So appreciate you. So it's 2007. I go into law school, and I didn't know what law school was. I didn't know what law was. I just knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I was coming out of the system. I beat my last case in 2006. I got shot 5 times in 2006. I started law school August 2007. So. And I beat my last case. I got shot January 15, 2006. I beat my last case like January 25th, 2006. And then I was in the application process for law school, and then I got admitted to law school May of 2007.
Oh, so you got shot, and you was like, all right, I got shot, I'm gonna go prosecute these niggas.
No.
That was my
No.
You got shot. Instead of going to shoot these niggas back.
Who said they didn't get shot back?
I ain't say shit.
Well, you presumed.
I presume on the one side. Shit,
listen, this ain't Vlad. I ain't telling on myself on the podcast.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what y'all talking about, but this ain't that. Okay, you talking about something you ain't going. Instead of shooting them back, this is not Vlad. I am not telling on myself on the podcast. I ain't never did nothing to nobody. No, what happened is I got shot, and both my parents had cancer. I mean, my mom died a year after I got shot from cancer. My mom died 07, my dad died 09. It was a reality check of like, yo, cuz, what is you doing?
Right.
And I tell this story, I go up to Youth Study Center all the time to speak to kids, and I tell them, I'm like, yo, when they blow the whistle, when you step out of bounds in the streets, it's jail or death. Or serious bodily injury. Right. Like when you step out of bounds on, it's all types of games you can play. You can be in Wall Street. You can be in medicine. In medicine, you step out of bounds, you get hit with a medical malpractice lawsuit. Right. That's what I do. You know what I mean? You're a cop, you step out of bounds. We working very hard to make sure that when cops step out of bounds, they actually have a penalty. They didn't have no penalty when they stepped out of bounds. Right. But it's all these different games in the world that you can play that when you step out of bounds, there's a penalty. Do the sorts of things that black men do. Our economy, our world that we live in, the harshest penalties are for when we step out of bounds.
Right.
So, you can have somebody DUI, crash their car, almost kill people. They get a couple of days in jail. Young boy walking down the street with 7 grams of crack, 2 years in jail. And the question is like, well, which one is worse? And they was like, well, crack kills people. DUI kills people too. So why 3 days instead of 2 years on the first offense? I wish I knew all of that when I decided to become a DA. I literally got advice from an old head that was like, yo, you want to be like Brian McMonagle and them. You want to be like Fred Perry and them. State Property was out, right? Fred Perry was in State Property 2 representing Beanie Siegel. That was like that's what I wanted to be in life. I wanted to be the lawyer for State Property. When State Property 2 came out and Fred Perry was in that first scene with Beans, I was like, because you got to realize, 03, 04, 05, 06, we coming off the AI era, we coming off the State Property era. The center of the universe was Philadelphia. Like Beyonce, Joel Santana, Jay-Z, they sitting in the criminal justice center. And so for me, like, you would go to court and you'd be standing in line in the CJC and then Jay-Z would walk by. And it's like, that's what AI was in court. I mean, these people, you go out to the club, the people who was running around with the ball players, Jameer Nelson and all them from Chester, they had just got done doing their thing for St. Joe's. It was a really fun time to be in the city. So what ends up happening is, like, I go to law school and the opportunity, listen, the economy crashes in 08. I was going to try to do corporate law. I started to understand how to be, like, I come into law school, I don't know nothing. I don't know it's a competition of reading and writing. I had no clue. I didn't know the best law students were the people who could read the most and write the best. No clue. I didn't know. I thought I was going to be in there having a debate. That's what I thought law school was. I thought law school was going to be a debate class. I had no clue. I didn't know what law school.
That's what I thought,
Man, law school is you sit in a library with a book for 12 hours a day and then go to class and the teacher asks you questions over and over again. And then you do it again and you hope that they don't ask you questions the next day. It's literally 99% reading and writing. Because people paying you to think. That's what you're doing. You're getting paid to do the shit nobody else want to do. You know, you open up your iPhone right now and it say your iPhone update, hit this disclaimer, and here's all the new rules, all the waivers and stuff. You don't read that. You scroll to the bottom and you hit done.
Yeah.
Lawyers write that.
Right.
Lawyers write that. That's, you know how annoying that probably is. That's why somebody pay us a bunch of money to do it. But the point I was making is that I get to law school and I do the same thing I do everything else. When I was in the streets, I'll never forget, old head asked me, I like hit either gambling, and I don't really gamble, but I come up on some money some way. And old head asked me, what you doing with your money? I know you about to go cop a wheel. I was like, I'm putting in with y'all. Everything I do, I look at who my competition is, and I don't ever want to sit at a table anywhere. I don't ever want to walk in a club. I don't want to sit at a table. I don't want to walk into a car dealership and see somebody else that spend the same amount of time and money spend the same amount of time that I do on something and get paid more than I do. I don't ever want to be the one getting finessed. I don't ever want somebody, if you selling me a 7 for $250 and making money off of it, that means that it's a way to get a 7 for cheaper. You know what I mean? If you selling me a 4.5 soft and that's making you money, that means that I can figure out a way to get the 4.5 soft for how much you're paying for it.
Right.
That's always been my approach to everything I do in my life, from hustling to law. Okay. So when I'm in law school, I'm like, so where are you going to work? They're like, well, I'm about to go I never forget, my man was like, yeah, my lawyer charged $100 an hour. I was like, wow, what lawyers charge $100? I get to law school, I start meeting lawyers that charge $800 an hour. This lawyer's charging $3,000 an hour now. And it's like, when I hear that, I'm like, well, I need to figure out how to charge $3,500 an hour.
Right.
Because there's no way I'm gonna sit in a room and the bull sitting across from me is charging $3,000 an hour and I'm charging $500 an hour. Right. And we both sitting there for an hour. Okay. I feel like, what do you do that I didn't? Now I'm starting to understand some of them dudes, they got credentials that's like, they can call Barack Obama and get him to make a statement. Some people want to get paid. I mean, if you want me to call Barack, it's going to cost you. So that's the game. And once I started understanding the game, I started being like, yo, I got to drop this not radical mindset, because it was never radical. It was street. It was like, I just want to come here and hustle. And it was like, no.
That's a good perspective.
It was like, yo, you got to do what you need to do. He said, listen, you got some shit with you. And I'm like, what you mean? He's like, you have a credibility issue that you're never going to overcome unless you demonstrate to people that you have integrity. You used to sell dope, nigga. Like you been to jail, you been shot. People think you shot people. People think I'm gonna come on a podcast and tell them like, yeah, it was a nigga named Kevin with the Mac 11. Like, November 2009, I graduated law school, May 2010. I was interviewing everywhere. I'm just because the economy fell. I had an offer to work for the summer at one of the big law firms that was gonna pay me $150,000 an hour. I screwed that interview up because I asked them some dumb question like, so y'all represent plaintiffs, businesses sue businesses? And they looked at me like, he don't understand a damn thing about what we do. I didn't. I bombed the interview. But they was gonna pay me $160,000 starting. I mean, I'm like, that's more money than my dad. When I filled out my first FAFSA, if I'm not mistaken, my dad had $11,000 of, he made $11,000 my senior year of fucking high school. That's how much reportable income my pop had. And they offered me a job. They offered me a job 7 years later, $160,000 a year. I was ready to jump out the window. But what ends up happening is I sit on a panel. Me, Jamira Burley, Mark Lamont Hill, Judge Paula Patrick, Shaka Fatah was there, but he wasn't on the panel. Right. Terry Woods, who wrote True to the Game, and it was one more person, I can't remember. But what ends up happening was Kenyatta Johnson to it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting on this panel, and what ends up happening is Kenyatta and Mark Lamont Hill is telling my story. Shot 5 times, locked up 6 times, from West Philly. Grew up around the corner from where Seth Williams grew up. Seth Williams heard my story, and he's like, and then Kenyatta said, yeah, Kevin is leaving to go take a job at the Bronx District Attorney's Office. And Seth Williams said, over my dead body. I need people just like you with your story. I'm hiring you because you've been to jail 6 times, because you've been shot 5 times. And I want you in my office to change the perspective of what it is for folks that look like us. Damn. And I came in and I was in the office. I was there for...
You had power, man.
Well, hold on. I was there for 2 months and they wrote an article. They leaked every juvenile record I had to the press illegally. I was there for 2 months and they had leaked all my records. They tried to get me fired. They called me a criminal. So I got raked over the coals immediately. Like they literally, like judges were saying, we can't believe Seth Williams. Seth Williams was doing so well when he first started. The first negative article about Seth Williams in any newspaper in the United States of America was about him hiring me as an assistant district attorney because the words were, he's a superstar in court, but prosecutors are supposed to be above reproach. How can we punish anyone if he is allowed to be the person giving out the punishment? That's what they said. And the thing is that, you know, it took me a while to get comfortable. Mm-hmm. Because at first I'm trying to prove myself, which means I'm in there. And to be honest with you, I had a very fundamental lack of understanding of the criminal justice system. Even though I had been a defendant in the criminal justice system, I didn't really understand where the inequities were. I didn't understand that cops lie, which is crazy. Even though cops would lie on me, I always thought that was just part of the game. You know what I mean? I expect the paperwork to say that I served that fiend. I expect that, even though I didn't. I expect the paperwork to say that it was a positive identification or that they read me. We in the streets, we never looked at it as, you know, unfair for the cops to lie. You know what I mean? I expect that if I resist arrest, I'm gonna get charged with aggravated assault. You know what I mean? I knew that when the freaky Jason cop used to pull us over, he used to always try to like put his hands in places that he wasn't supposed to. You knew that it was certain cops, if they jumped out on you, they was gonna fuck you up. But we never looked at it as inequity. It wasn't until it was the game. You know what I mean? Normal. Like it was the game. I mean, 2 of my favorite cops to this day, Billy and Rolex. No, he said, I give y'all 60 seconds and then I'm gonna hawk y'all down. Rolex, fast nigga in Southwest. He take off after you. We all running, we laughing and joking. Whoever get caught, they beat their ass. It was a joke. It was a game. And the thing is that there was also a mutual understanding. There was Lucci and Schubert, 2 highway cops. They started off on the burglary detail in Southwest. And they understood, y'all don't shoot. Y'all will shoot if y'all need to, but I know y'all don't want nobody creating no drama around here. It's a TI track doing my job. He said, hustle, how you do it? We got wives, we got wives, jobs, kids, moms, he said, we ain't the one running in your house trying to hurt, we trying to make a living. It's one of my favorite songs by T.I. called Doing My Job, where he pretty much said, like, we hustling out here. We do not want to shoot. We do not want to kill. We want to have commerce. You know what I mean? And I was always a diplomat on the street. So what ends up happening is like, for the most part, to my benefit, you know, the cops always was like, yo, long as ain't no shooters out here, you good. Our heat comes when it's shooting. It was really never no shootings. And when there was shootings, we out there slapping dudes on the back of the neck. Yo, what's wrong with you, dog? We don't do that around here. I never forget one of our old heads had a connect that was from 7th Street, like 7th and Huntington. And that was a heroin block. So niggas would go down there and sell heroin for 24 hours, and they'd make more money selling heroin down 7th Street than they made on 58th Street. So one of the young boys came back down and he started trying to push heroin on 58th Street. And the old heads pulled up like it was, you'd have thought somebody shot John F. Kennedy. Yo, you out here selling heroin? We don't do that around here. And he's like, what you mean? He's like, no, man, you start selling heroin on this block, this row of nice houses will be empty in 3 weeks. We cannot put heroin in this neighborhood. We don't do that around here. Like, wasn't nobody pushing no Ronnie G on 58th Street in 0206. Nowadays, you go down there, they crystal meth, and you see empty houses, and you see burned down houses, you see kids without parents. And it's like, I remember like that protectionism. And you know, for somebody outside looking in, they're like, what's the difference? It's all poison. But that's the game that I was trained on, is that like we had a certain level of decorum and respect that we thought was appropriate, participating in any sort of oppression, because it was just a part of the game.
That's beautiful.
I mean, it's not beautiful because
perception is because
what ends up happening is my best friend got smoked by a cop my third year as a DA.
Outside then, you look at the villain for the streets, but it's like, no, you were somebody that's the opportunity. That story you just said about $5 an hour versus $2,000 an hour.
Probably on the autism spectrum. You know what I mean? Like, but definitely different. Like, you know what I mean? Like intellectually different. All there, they could function, but definitely never been off the porch. Their mom had issues. And this old head had been standing on the corner. He had dropped his car off. What she didn't know is that he had dropped his car off at a mechanic shop. And he had just had 2 knee replacements. And they told him that he needed to walk. So he was walking around the block over and over and over again just to get some traction on his knees, because his physical therapist told him to walk. The mom freaked out, said that he was on some Freaky Jason type time. Like, this man stalking me around the corner. She runs it.
What was going on.
Ran in the crib, told her sons, this man stalking me. They come outside, sit on the porch. They see him walk by 2 more times. He got these glasses. I'm talking about put 3 more lenses in front of it. That's the look that he got. He looking at them from the porch. They like, what you looking at? And he like, he an old head, and he wasn't a weirdo. It just, in that set of circumstances, he used to wear something was weird. He wore contacts or something, but because stigmatism fixed, like he had a surgery on his eyes, he was wearing these particular glasses. They talking about stabbed him, beat him down. I mean, old head ain't do nothing wrong. And mom sicked her sons on old head. He called 911. They come, they stole his keys, but it was on some more like we beat him up and took your bag, but that's a robbery. The defense attorney thought that like the dude was legitimately a creep. And, you know, I'm meeting with the dude a hardworking man. He worked at the sanitation department. He got up every day. He was the dispatcher for the sanitation department, which means that, you know, trash trucks leave out 5 a.m., which means he got to be working at 3 a.m. every day. Yeah. He had a beautiful wife, beautiful family. And I remember this lady who sicked her sons on this man. She, let's just say, if you put his wife and her in a beauty competition, it wasn't close.
Right.
And they ran with the defense of he was a creep and he was on some Freaky Jason type time, and everything they did was justified. It was defense of others, self-defense. And I had to really just say, like, yo, this isn't, you could have just stayed in the house and called 911 if you really thought Bull was a Freaky Jason. Because he never approached her or nothing. Never approached her or nothing. He had just had 2 knee replacements. He couldn't chase.
How could a defense attorney even go with that argument? That don't even make sense.
The clients didn't want to plead guilty. They weren't never going to plead guilty. They were convinced that they were right.
Right.
And excellent lawyers on the other side for the most part, but they had been paid money to do something. You know what I mean? And I cooked them.
As you should.
Cooked them.
As you should put them in a blender.
Cooked them. It was, and I mean, excellent lawyers. I mean, we all came to mutual respect, but cooked them. But
real quick, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just love how you apply all the things that we say out in the street, put them in the blender, cook them, barbecue them, all of that. But you from a academic perspective,
Yeah.
applying it to something that
It was relatable.
yeah,
Yes.
like it's not, so that's
I'm
stuff
just
that you
trying to
hear.
I try to make it more inclusive because I try to
Yeah.
create spaces where people understand that this is for us.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think that this is for us.
So why don't they teach us law in school? I mean, we know why, but
They do.
Talk to us.
No, they do. I mean, we just didn't realize, like, I mean, you take a history class or you take a U.S. history class and they teaching you the Constitution and the amendments and, you know, and it's like I laugh. People are like, when they didn't teach us this in school? I said, I was there, you was there too, you just wasn't paying attention. Like,
But you see, this is the thing though, like,
he
I think that
talking.
they teach us history, yes, and that is definitely law, for sure. But when you were a kid in school, they don't, at least not where I went to school, they don't exclusively say that these are things these are skills and stuff that you are learning that you could apply to law school if you so choose to go to law school.
Mm-hmm.
Like that connection is not made. I don't know if it's made in other schools
no, it's
where
not.
you pay more
It's
taxes.
not. It's
but
not. It wasn't even made for me in college necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I got to college thinking law school was going to be a debate class. You get what I'm
when
saying?
did you realize that, oh shit, I learned this in...
I mean, I knew it all the time. I mean, I knew it from just like a history perspective. Like I knew that, like, I knew what, when I was in high school, I knew that when I was learning about the Magna Carta, that they was teaching me about, and the thing is that I'll say this, Central was different than Bartram.
Right.
Like at Central, we got electives. We started off at biology, chemistry, then physics, and then fourth year you had an elective, anatomy and physiology, which was something that you could typically take in college.
Yeah,
Or you
that's
could
why I
take
took it in
you could take AP classes and get ahead and start taking college courses in advance. When I left Central to go to Bartram, there were no courses for me to take with the seniors.
Central got study abroad program too, don't they? Yeah, they
But there were no courses for me to take with the seniors because I had already took physics. So if I took physics in 11th grade and they teach physics to 12th graders, I'm in a English as a second language material science class with a whole bunch of kids who are Liberian, Asian, East Asian, South Asian, all that, you know, Southwest got a nice little immigrant community. And it's me who got 4 years, I got biology, and they are teaching to these kids how to do basic math, but they also kind of teaching English. I took, at Central, we take calculus, trig, advanced calculus, and then something else, I forget. Oh, no, we take algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus. But when we get to Bartram, they stop out at, like, I think at trig or like geometry, because they didn't have enough students to fill up a calculus class or an advanced calculus class. So what ends up happening is I end up in a fucking remedial math class with people who don't know how to read. And that's because, so while I'm saying at Central, yeah, I got Magna Carta, at Bartram, I don't know if they even had students who had been advanced enough. And that's something that I always talk about, is that, like, when you educate to the masses. That's the thing about public education, is they educate to the masses. If you got 98 kids who can't read, the 2 kids who can't read are going to fall behind.
Suffer, yeah.
Because you're teaching to the 98. And I think that at a lot of schools that I experience is that they're teaching to the 98, they're not teaching to the 2 kids. And that's where I always had problems in school.
The kids who are, the few who are up at the top, they suffer.
Yeah, I mean, you need, so they've tried to change that with programs like they used to have MG.
Should they end up teaching the kid, those few kids at the top end up teaching
The
their
other
classmates.
kids, yeah. Oh, trust
So
me,
they
I've been
never
there.
grow, yeah.
Like, you know, the vicious switch with your classmate and let him mark your test. You got MG classes, you have special admit classes, but a lot of the times those things start to create inequity. So, like, they create schools that special admit. So it's like, oh, these 2 kids that's intelligent or that's doing a little bit better, that are maybe neurodivergent, they may be a little bit autistic, they may be a little smarter because they just catch on to things more quickly, they may be on the spectrum. You put them into a program that's for smart kids. But then what happens is all of these people start swinging in from the suburbs. Like, oh, we got a school that's smart and cheap, that's giving up a good product. And then all of a sudden they start moving back to the city, and then instead of that school being for the 2 black kids or the 2 well-achieving children, you end up with a school like Penn Alexander, which is a school in West Philly that the University of Pennsylvania started, where now the home prices where that school is,
done went up.
not the taxes, but the home prices have went up because everybody wants to live in that catchment to get the access of living in the city and sending their kids to a relatively excellent school. So, you know, at the end of the day, the only way you're going to change it is by it's in-house. Like you're never going to be able to outsource the basic education, at least in my opinion. Schools are going to work hard to do it, but at any time, listen, it's not necessarily a business, but it's just the economics of it. It's just like listen, Penn Alexander was such a good school that like the school next to it starts to do well because the kids that can't get into Penn Alexander, they're like, well, damn, we got to put our kids somewhere. I didn't win the lottery. I got to send my kids to another school. There's a school 4 or 5 blocks away. Now that school doing really well.
Alexander?
43rd and like Spruce. It's like down, I'm thinking like how many blocks down from Copas? No. On Penn campus, so Spruce on the north, on the south side of Market.
The reason why I say it coming to business because, like, you know, now you have like KIPS and Masteries taking over all the schools.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a business.
Yeah, and I work for KIP, and what I want to say about that, I love KIP, but even when I work for Mastery too, I work for them too in the past. They have people that's pull the trouble students, like the struggling students. I mean, right, one-on-ones and small groups. But for the ones that's passing, it's nothing for them. So the ones that's passing are really bored because they're bored, and they're gonna wind up being kind of how you were, as far as like you were very intelligent, but you went to the streets because you were kind of. I felt like you were advanced. Like then they had the tools to keep.
Yeah, it's happening
in that SCAR class.
They build onto that with like there's this false narrative of kids who live in struggling neighborhoods or underserved neighborhoods need to be in school from 7 in the morning until 4:30, 5 o'clock at night. And that's not the case in a lot of other neighborhoods where people are thriving, where their homes cost more. They out of school at 2:30.
2:30.
You know what I mean? So you can take advantage of other extracurriculars and activities and sports.
Come on.
So like those type of things, because that will deter a kid from going to school. I've been in this joint from 7 o'clock to 5.
Everybody's trying to figure out this problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem that's not unique to and it's not a problem that's unique to African American schools. I mean, the Public Interest Law Center is a strategic law firm that filed a lawsuit against the state of Pennsylvania for underfunding education, and they specifically chose rural school districts because the rural school districts have been so underfunded, and they got schools where you got kids that their schools are really doing badly because they don't have the number of people to support a tax base for a school at all. So it's really it's a problem that I think a lot of people are trying to figure out as we evolve. I mean, our entire industries have evolved. I mean, regardless of. Well, I won't say regardless of it, but there's even at the top with Trump, they're saying we want to bring manufacturing back. And what they're saying is that we messed up with this college prep environment where all of our children are being taught college prep. And they're saying we shouldn't be doing that. And you hear a lot of people saying bring vocations back to the schools. Yeah, but the reality of it is that, the economy doesn't look like either of those. You know what I mean? Like you got 80-year-olds saying we need to bring back automotive technology in schools. And it's like, you can't even get the technology.
Tesla.
Like how, if the way that they engineer vehicles now, you can't get the $100 million worth of equipment and technology and upskilling of the teachers and the facilities to teach kids automobile tech. It's not the same. They're like, we need to bring the trades back to the schools, carpentry. I was like, those jobs don't look the way they did when you were in school. Mom, pop.
But the crazy thing is, I'm glad so that you say that. Being in education, I see the beginning of that right now. Like there's meetings that we have, all types of things where it's like now it's no more college or bus. It used to be like college or bus. You go to college, if you don't go to college, and you crapped out. Now the whole thing has changed. The message has changed now. It's like vocational now. You got more options now. So like charter schools are now saying you got more options.
Arts.
All these different things. You got CHOP programs getting into schools. All these different things are now happening. And so that I never knew where that was born from, like the beginning of that. But then when what you're saying now, I understand how it's now trickling down to schools. It's happening. Yeah. Right now it's happening.
Yeah, and it's coming because the economy is begging for it. They want workers. They want the economy needs nurses. The economy don't need nobody else writing, a book on, it's so many books that just come out and it's like, how to wrestle a bear in a gummy suit. Like, my dissertation is on, the history of the word we as used by, and it's like, the economy don't need no more of that. I mean, like, a lot of people go to school thinking they're going to become a professor, et cetera. And, and there's a lot of and there's a real big need for correction. It's like, we tell this joke. So I'm a trustee at Kutztown now. Governor Shapiro and first Governor Wolf, then Governor Shapiro appointed me to be a trustee at the university, and we have a philosophy department, or at least we had a philosophy department. And philosophy is that's a very intelligent major, and it's a very valid major. And I think most people would say that every American university needs a philosophy major, because that's what school doesn't have a philosophy major? This is the study of thought. But you got 8 philosophy professors and 2 philosophy majors.
And 20 perceptions.
No, listen what I'm saying. You have a program where there are 2 students and 8 professors. There's no demand for it.
Okay.
Like at many of the universities, Penn, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, they have a major called the classics. And then they started realizing that nobody wanted to study the classics.
I understand the purpose of having, so I know when I was in school,
Beethoven and all that.
Well, the classics is like Shakespeare and studying classical writing. Or the idea that people, it's a switch. For the last 20 years, what we've been hearing in education, STEM. Everybody been talking science, technology, engineering, mathematics, because that is what's funneling social media, technological advancements, et cetera. But what that did was it left out the liberal arts, philosophy, art, languages, because people why I need to study Spanish for when I can go on my Google and put it in a Google Translate. So what you see is now a lot of the universities are losing students. They don't have students that are studying these things. They're studying what can get them money. They're studying finance. They're studying engineering. They want to go work in Silicon Valley. The people who are on the front page of Fortune magazine or the Wall Street Journal, none of them majored in philosophy. So nobody wants to be a philosopher. And the people we worship, I don't worship anyone, but the people we worship, none of them are philosophers.
Philosophers never represented as somebody you want to be, though.
Exactly.
You never see any space that a philosopher is being depicted. It's never a person that has a lot of money, that lives a luxurious lifestyle. It's always a very meek person.
And that's not the world we live in now.
That's not the world.
You can't. I was about to say, you ain't gonna get 100 likes on your philosophy book.
Not at all. It's not understood.
We did a lot of talking, and I definitely want to get out of here without even talking about currently. So speaking of evolution, like I said, when I met you 10 years ago, you were assistant DA. Tell me what you're doing now. What's your title now in law? Where we going at now?
So I'm a partner at a firm in the city of Philadelphia. I do what's called catastrophic injury work.
Okay.
Catastrophic injury is just any injury where an individual suffers just a life-changing injury. So loss of a limb, loss of life. I also built a civil rights practice. So it's a catastrophic civil rights practice. People who went to jail for crimes they didn't commit, people who have been shot and killed or injured, maimed by police officers, government people.
She went from assistant DA to civil rights.
Yeah, I mean, my best friend got shot and killed by a cop in 2013.
Yeah.
And that really, I fumbled that case when his family came to me and told me what he went through was illegal, or if it wasn't illegal, what he went through was a violation of his rights or something this was before Trayvon. And Trayvon Martin changed everything when it came to criminal justice, because it was the first time people were the police, overwhelmingly. People think George Floyd changed. Nah, it was Trayvon. Because before Trayvon, none of the distrust of law enforcement was very minimal. And after Trayvon and the way that they handled that case, it just led to a level of public scrutiny of law enforcement that I had never seen before. What ends up happening simultaneously is, because at the end of the day, a lot of my desire to be successful is born out of the fact that I grew up really poor, and then even when I was in the streets, I was always a share the wealth type dude. And because it's no fun having money alone, it's no fun. And again, I grew up in the state property era. I grew up in the Rockefeller era. We don't go nowhere without a squad of people. Like the idea of it being just you and nobody around you doing well is very not kosher. But I read an article when I was in maybe my second year of practicing law, that said the $2,000 per hour lawyer. And I remember reading it and going, what? And it's funny because I referenced the $3,000 per hour lawyer. That's where they at now. And I remember going to one of my mentors and being like, do we know anybody that make $2,000 per hour? And he gave me a name. And I'm now law partners with the guy that he gave me, that name, whose name he gave me. But the point is that I started identifying areas of law where the leverage, where you could actually create that sort of value. And then from there, not only from a desire to make money, but also a desire to do the right thing, I mixed those two things together. I found a space where I could do that. The first practice area that I identified was what's called white collar crime, which is I was a white collar criminal defense lawyer, which is they try to be fancy and say white collar crime is like crime committed by professionals, people who have a collar. But the reality is white collar crime is anybody who can pay you $1,000 an hour, no matter what. They got a DUI, a rape. I mean, like the lawyers representing Diddy right now, those ain't white collar crimes, but his lawyers are white collar lawyers. You know what I'm saying? And then I in Pennsylvania, in Philly in particular, but Pennsylvania as well, we're eds in Med City. So a lot of the investigations that I was involved in involved educational institutions and medical institutions. So I'm representing doctors who might be freaky Jasons. I'm representing
Freaky Jasons is crazy.
Yeah, but freaky Jason, I mean, everybody understands. All you gotta do is say it. You're like, yeah, he's freaky Jason.
Yeah.
Like nobody's gonna question what I meant when I said that the doctor was too much into his freaky Jason stuff. And they were like, oh wow, yeah, okay. Doctors who was overprescribing pills, physician offices that were being investigated for their prescribing practices with OxyContin and things like that.
Percocets under the table.
Exactly. And then what started happening was I was representing them in criminal matters, but then at the same time they would get sued because let's say, for example, you gave somebody 100 Percocet pills that shouldn't have got 100 Percocet pills. And then that person overdoses and dies, and then that family sues the doctor or the pharmacy. So he's criminally being investigated by the feds or the attorney general's office, and at the same time, the family's suing him. So I'm doing both at the same time, representing him in both contexts. And then one time one of my clients got sued for a freaky Jason situation, and the client just dropped the ball on a individual who ended up criminally convicted of all types of freaky Jason stuff while he was at work with patients and with coworkers, like hands in places he ain't supposed to put his hands. Right. And a friend of mine he's now a friend, he was a friend back then as well, he represented some of the victims of that behavior, and they sued my client, and we resolved the matters before anything like became public. And I just remember thinking to myself, damn, like he just shook us. I'm talking about he put us in a blender, and it was like we were thanking him for taking our money. I'm talking about like, thank you so much for taking our money. Like, listen, do you want more? Like, do you want more? And I just remember thinking that. So I had gotten that experience, and then I happened to run into one of my law partners, and I was the president of the Black Lawyers, which is really important, the Barristers Association.
President of Black Lawyers.
For Philadelphia, the Barristers Association of Philadelphia. And it was important because I brought my law partner in to meet with them, and it's really just understanding how all of this is full circle. It was my community-oriented position, which allowed me to have a platform to pitch not only myself to my law partner, but also to pitch what type of work we were doing in our community, which then ended up getting me a job offer. So, you know, I try to practice, I try to tell people all the time that all of this is interconnected. You know what I mean? Like,
Your evolution is crazy.
but all of it is interconnected. I mean, and now, I mean, I was reading an article.
You need a book, man.
No, I don't. When they write books about you, you done. Always remember that. Either you done or you about to go run for office, and I'm never running for office. But I always tell me, one of my goals is that I gotta kill it hard enough that somebody will wanna write the book about me. I mean, everybody,
again.
but that's it. I want to kill it so crazy that like when they're all said and done, like they're paying someone to write the book about me instead of it being me taking time. Like I'm too busy to write a book. If I'm writing a book, I mean, if I'm writing a book, I'm not doing something right.
Yeah. Live to be Legendary is proudly sponsored by Philly Real Estate Services and Solutions. Are you a Philadelphia landlord in need of expert landlord-tenant services? Look no further. Philly Real Estate Services and Solutions is here to represent you in landlord-tenant court, ensuring a smooth and hassle-free experience. Give them a call at 610-235-7998. Again, the number is 610-235-7998.